What is up, everybody? We are gathered here today to go over a 2022 mock draft. I know the college season is not over yet, but we really wanted you guys to start looking at these rookies. We'll have all kinds of content coming to Campus2Canton.com and the YouTube channel by all of us here, but we wanted to start with a quick and early 2022 mock. So for today's video, we've got the five of us. That's Brandon there. He'll be picking out of the one slot. You got Mr. Colin Decker picking right after him, Austin Nace going at the 1-3, myself at 1-4, and then Mike, how do you say your last name? I meant to ask you this before we started recording. If I was a better host, I would have asked.
Hey, it's just like the girl's name with an extra L in it.
So
Valerie.
Just Valerie?
Yeah, nailed it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, wait, no.
Like the song.
Okay,
There you go.
Great
man.
song.
I'm man of culture.
gotcha. All right, yeah. I'm very bad with pronunciation. I didn't know how to say Eric Ezukanma's name for like 5 weeks into the season. He was just Eric from Texas Tech for me, so it's easier if people just say it. So I'm like a parrot. I can repeat anything once you say it, but reading is not my strong suit. So we're going to kick it off here with Mr. Brandon Hay. Again, there is the draft order for everybody. And just for everybody as you're watching this, when we reverse back around, you will see the numbers on the bottom. Reverse, we'll have a ticker going on the bottom to remind you guys of the picks. But Brandon, let's kick it off to you. You've got the 1-1. This is a SuperFlex and tight end premium draft. So, Brandon, who are you taking at the 1-1 and why?
Yeah, so this, I think it's been said, this draft, don't necessarily love having the first pick in it because I don't think there's a clear cut, but for me, Superflex, I think you have to go quarterback, and I'm going with Matt Corral here. I like Sam Howell a lot too, but I actually don't think Matt Corral would necessarily has to be the first quarterback taken to take him at the 1-1 because actually the team that I said I would like to see him go to is the Giants, so I would think one of the Lions or Texans would go quarterback, and then if he falls there, I like with those weapons, and I think Corral, his running style is a little different than how you've seen the last couple of games. He's got really banged up because he just tries to run over people, and I don't think in the NFL he'll necessarily be able to do that. Where Corral likes to slide down more and does a little bit more with the spread. So I think in the right scheme, he could put up some really big numbers. So that's why I like Corral.
So you mentioned that it doesn't matter to you if he's not the first QB off the board. Is there a team that if he fell to that you would not be willing to take him as a top QB?
I'm looking at the draft order right now. I don't think so. I think he could fit in, looking past those first, let's say like 10. You have the Panthers up there, I think that he would be good there. Falcons if they go that route, Saints, Steelers, Broncos. I think all those teams have great offensive weapons, so I don't think that would change me at all.
All right, Colin, who are you taking at 1-2?
At the 1-2, I'm with Brandon here. I don't love the early picks in this draft just because there's not a lot of separation among these guys. So most situations, I'd probably look to move back, but obviously it's not an option here. So I'm going to take Isaiah Spiller, running back, Texas A&M here. My ideal landing spot for him was Atlanta, and no, that's not because I'm an Atlanta homer. I think that Atlanta needs a running back. I think that he would fit that system very well. He's got a 3-down skill set. I like his size, adjusted athleticism as well. And that's kind of the differentiator between Spiller and Hall for me. It's a coin flip. I go back and forth a lot. I'm going to have to really dive into the tape here this offseason to come up with a firm, 1A, 1B. Because right now it's Spiller's my 1A, 1B, but I could see Hall jumping it. But the thing that separates Spiller right now, again, size-adjusted athleticism. I just think he's a better athlete, gives him a little bit higher ceiling.
So you're taking a running back here already off the board at 1.2. Is this just kind of speaking volumes to you about how much you don't, or should this be speaking volumes about how much you don't like this quarterback class and maybe it's not as strong as we think it can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Brandon at the 1-1 with Matt Corral, I think that's a solid pick there. Matt Corral has a good ceiling, especially from a fantasy perspective. Sam Howell would be my next quarterback here, but and I know you've brought it up before. I've heard other people bandy it around. Baker Mayfield's a fairly good comp for him, I think, at least in terms of fantasy production, because I don't see him being able to run for 200 yards or 30 times a game like he has been sometimes this season. He takes too many hits. He doesn't know when to get down. So I hope he does not run at the next level. So at that point, he's a very good quarterback. He's solid. I think he's safe in terms of NFL production. He's safe in terms of fantasy production, but I don't see the ceiling there. So I don't like taking him that early.
All right, Austin, you're up.
I took Treylon Burks at the 3rd pick. I actually didn't really know what team to send him to. I think he could work anywhere. I originally put I don't know and then just put Atlanta as a joke since literally everybody wanted everybody to go to Atlanta in this draft for some reason. I don't really understand why. But Burks, I mean, he's just the biggest, most athletic guy in this class. And I think a lot of the concerns about him are overblown. That people say, can he separate? He looked like he was stacking corners pretty damn well this past week against Bama. He's versatile. He can play in the slot. He can play outside if he needs to. He's just been dominating the SEC for 2 years in a row, and he has all the athletic tools. I don't see how he isn't a top 15, 18 pick in the draft. And for me, that's more than good enough then to take him this early when I don't feel great about the running backs and the quarterbacks still on the board.
Do you think that he will be the first wide receiver off the board, and is he locked into first-round draft capital for you?
It's really hard to guess what NFL teams are going to do with some of these wide receivers. I think there have been some slightly surprising picks over the past few years in the first round, but I think he's going to go to the combine and just destroy it. And so I think that I think if I had to guess, I would say it's either him or Garrett Wilson. That's the first wide receiver off the board. Just give me the guy that I think has just the slightly higher athletic ceiling.
I was trying to think of a bad team to send him to, and would that change it for you at all if he went to a bad offense? Or I'm just going to use the Seahawks as an example because they already have like a DK Metcalf and a Tyler Lockett. If he got drafted by a team like that as well, where he might not be the first option.
If we didn't learn from A.J. Brown a few years ago, then you really just don't deserve to take Treylon Burks in that situation. You better give him to somebody that can appreciate him. So, no, that would not knock me off of him at all. And that's just a general rule of mine.
Fair enough. All right, so at 5, that's me. And I was very much with Colin on this. If he would have taken Breece Hall here, as he was talking about, was kind of an argument for him, I would have taken Isaiah Spiller. I do like this quarterback class, and typically in a SuperFlex draft, if there's a quarterback like Sam Howell here at the 1-4, I would take him. But I think there's a bigger drop-off at running back than there is at quarterback in this draft. There's a couple quarterbacks I think you can get later. So I'm taking Breece Hall here. And I'm unfortunately just like Colin. It's kind of a toss-up here for me with these two, 1A, 1B, because I think Hall's floor is much safer than Spiller's, but I do think Spiller has a slightly better ceiling. But just watching Hall produce in college the way he has the past couple years, it's been flat out amazing. He just set a college record for 24 touchdowns in a row, or 24 games with a touchdown. He's got good receiving upside. I think the biggest thing that he just doesn't have that home run speed, but I don't know that necessarily matters. We saw David Montgomery. So the back half of last year and so far this season when he wasn't hurt has been producing for the Chicago Bears, and they don't necessarily have a good offensive line. So granted, I think it matters more landing spot for running backs than it does for wide receivers because as Austin mentioned with A.J. Brown, none of us thought A.J. Brown was going to be able to produce in Tennessee, and he did. Running backs, if he goes to and I doubt he goes there, if he goes to a Dallas Cowboys, he's not replacing Zeke, and maybe he jumps Tony Pollard, but I even doubt that. Colin, you were the one who mentioned Breece earlier. Is there anywhere that you think he could go that would really hurt his value? And do you think or I'll ask you this way, I'm sorry. Is he a locked-in second-round pick for you, or do you think I think at least a day 2, do you think he may fall to round 3?
I would be kind of surprised if he fell to round 3, just given the production that he's had and pass catching. I mean, he's shown a complete skill set there, and I think that is something that the NFL is still going to value. Now, the NFL is kind of trending towards, some committees. So in terms of specific landing spots, anywhere that he doesn't have the opportunity to at least potentially establish himself as, the lead in a backfield at the very worst, a 1A to a 1B. Like if he were to go somewhere, and it's not going to happen probably, but if he were to go somewhere like Dallas, where they already have Zeke and Pollard both under contract next year, I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I'd be a little bit concerned if he goes somewhere else that already has somebody that's, a little bit more established as well. So, but as long as I don't see that happening. So as long as he goes somewhere where he has where he's going to get the opportunity, I'll be interested.
What if he goes to Tampa Bay, Austin? Does that hurt his value with the way we've seen Bruce Arians bring in 8 running backs every offseason?
No. I'd have to look and see what the contract situation there is like, but I can't imagine Fournette has much longer. I'm pretty sure Rojo's done there after this year. Yeah. As far as I recall, Gio Bernard's on a 1-year deal. Like, there's a scenario where it's just Keyshawn Vaughn and him there next year, which is basically just him. So
no. How dare you? How dare you besmirch Keyshawn Vaughn? Yeah, I believe Leonard Fournette is as well. And just to point out, I did as well, just to prove that that Colin is not just an Atlanta homer, even though he kind of is. I had Hall going to Atlanta as well. I think that's primed for them to get one of these running backs and really help that offense, especially since Matt Ryan's pretty much died. Mike, you are up on the clock here. Who are you picking?
Yeah, my pick here is going to be Garrett Wilson.
Tell us why, good sir.
Yeah.
I don't. It's a dramatic suspense there. I think he has the complete skill set here. He might not be a true alpha, but I think he can be like a Keenan Allen at the next level or something like that. He can be an actual operator, not just inside but also outside. And that's what I really value in a player, is when they can play all over the field and not just one certain spot.
Do you think he's the first wide receiver drafted off the board?
I'm kind of with Austin. I think he's probably top 2. Like the locked in top 2 off the board. Yeah.
All right, so and I'll ask. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said the other one for me might be Chris Allave, because I think he's just a safe pick. He's more of a household name. So
yeah. So I'm going to ask you two, since you guys both picked wide receivers here in the top 5 picks, Austin and Mike. Austin, I'll have you go first. Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson, because they seem to be the top 2 for most everybody. Are they both top 10, 15, 20 picks in the NFL draft?
I don't have them graded as top 15 picks, either of them. But I think at least one of them will go there. I don't know when the last draft was that we didn't have a wide receiver go top 15, but I'd imagine it hasn't happened in a really long time. So teams just want weapons.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Austin there. I do think they both go top 25, but I do think one of them sneaks into top 15.
All right, so that gets us to the second part of the first round here. And as you see, Mike is now flipping around. He's got 1.6, so go ahead and give us your 1.6.
Yeah, my 1.6 is going to be Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. I believe that he has the upside. This is an upside pick. This is the upside pick. This is he's the top dual threat quarterback in this draft. We're right now witnessing what Jalen Hurst is doing in the NFL. I don't think Jalen Hurst is a great quarterback, but for fantasy, he's winning people's leagues. And I think Malik Willis also has that ability here. So this is an upside pick. And I'd be really happy if he fell to 1.6. I really do. So I think he's going to get drafted probably sooner than that.
So, second QB off the board here, as you guys can see, I'm about to take Sam Howell. As you just mentioned, it's a pure upside pick for you, which I do like. If he's not a first-round pick, would that change things for you?
It depends on the team he goes to. Like if I could tell he's going to be the starter, like sooner rather than later, or if he sits behind a Russell Wilson, where they're waiting for Russell Wilson's contract to run out, I might wait. I might not pick him up then, because I'm not going to get return value right away.
What about, and because I will talk about this team later with the quarterback that I will pick, so I'll kind of foreshadow that. What about a Washington, where the way Taylor Heineke has been playing this year likely gets to stay next season, and then possibly it's Malik Willis into the future. Does that kind of then keep him then there for you, even though he's a second-round pick, you'd still take him here at 1.6?
Yeah, I guarantee his second year is his role, probably back end of the first year, depending on how the team's doing. So, yeah.
All right, so at 1.7, I'm taking Sam Howell, and I just think he's got a very safe floor. I think he's got the safest floor of all the quarterbacks here. I think Corral is likely going to be the best. I like his tools that he has. Malik Willis has the highest upside, but Matt Corral is more refined, I think, and has shown it on the college football field. Sam Howell, I think we know what we're going to get from him when he goes into the NFL. Colin mentioned earlier, I've talked about him being like a Baker Mayfield type. Say what you want about Baker. He's been decent in the NFL at times, and I think at least that's what we're going to get out of Howell, regardless of where he goes. Being able to get a starting quarterback, even though Austin and Colin love to throw in my face all the time that QB2s don't win you fantasy leagues, I think that Howell does have a very safe QB2 floor. Austin, if he is the first quarterback drafted, though, over Matt Corral, does that change things at all for you on your evaluation of him and his value heading into rookie drafts?
I'll probably draft one Malik Willis next year just to hedge against me being incorrect. I mean, it's so hard to figure out some of these quarterbacks, but generally, I think I can find someone in my league that just likes him more than me and move back pretty easily. I think that'll probably be the play this year if I'm sitting at a 1-6 and he's still on the board.
I meant Sam Howell, but that works too for Malik Willis.
Oh, Sam Howell.
Yeah, it's all right.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
No, you're good. You're up. Who you picking?
So with my next pick, I went George Pickens. I realize this is possibly a slight reach, but I'm interested to see. Obviously, he came back last week. He caught at least one pass there for Georgia. If he can do a little something down the stretch here, do well enough at the combine. He's not an uber athlete, but he's not, running in molasses either. So he's a guy that I think, if he does all those things, then I think he can still get day one draft capital somewhere, end of the first round. And I still just love him as a receiver, his ball skills, his ability to win it at the catch point. I think he's a better separator than people want to give him credit for. So all those things kind of combined there. And I think he's going to be really good in the pros. Is he any worse than T. Higgins was in college? They're like the same player. I think he's just as good as T. Higgins was, if not slightly better.
So you said that you think he goes at the end of the first round. Does it change any for you if he goes second or even third round, knowing that we've seen those wide receivers still at least produce when they get to the NFL?
My cutoff is kind of like top 50. So round 3 would hurt it, but that's basically, top half of the second round. Wouldn't affect it that much, assuming that there aren't like 6 receivers in the top 18 picks of the NFL draft or something like that. I can't imagine there'd be so many guys going ahead of him at that point.
All right, Colin, who are you taking at 1-9?
The 1-9, I will take my wide receiver 2 there, David Bell, out of Purdue. I think he's just technically very good. I mean, Austin said it a couple times. He doesn't do anything elite. I disagree with that. I think he has elite body control. I think he just hangs onto the ball through contact. I think he's very good working along the sidelines. It's not a traditional elite trait that you kind of hang your hat on, but I think he has it. And I think that can help benefit him at the next level. His athleticism is a little bit of a question there, but you don't have to be an elite athlete to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, look at guys like Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins. None of those guys, Jarvis Landry, are great athletes. Comparatively. And I think David Bell is just athletic enough where he's going to be fine. So I like David Bell a lot.
What is his NFL fantasy upside for you?
I think the upside is probably a little bit limited. I don't really see any of these guys, except for maybe Treylon Burks, as having true wide receiver 1 upside on a constant basis. Maybe Pickens, but we still need to see a lot more with Pickens. So actually, I don't hate the Austin's pick at 1-8 there. I mean, it's probably a little bit rich. I don't think you have to spend that pick, but I'm assuming Austin, you'd probably have traded back there. Given the choice.
Nope, screw you. Stay in there. I'm taking him.
Thanks. Fair enough. No, so I think David Bell is likely on the wide receiver 1-2 borderline as a ceiling, but I think he'll be very consistent at the next level.
And you put Atlanta there. Is that just because you hope he can be the guy opposite of Ridley and maybe possibly help free up some stuff for like Pitts?
Yeah, well, I put him there mostly because I think he would work well with Pitts. We don't really know what's going on with Ridley. I mean, he's stepped away from the team for mental health reasons. You know, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back this year. I don't know what his status is going to be moving forward because it's been pretty vague on that front. So even if Ridley is still there, I think a combination of Bell, Ridley, and Pitts would be a really, really nice offensive trio. And then throw in, you know, Isaiah Spiller, Treylon Burks, Breece Hall, everybody else that people want to go Atlanta, and how can you go wrong?
They're going to make it to the Super Bowl and lose again. Brandon, who you taking at 110?
Hey, come on.
Hey,
At
go
least they're going to
Patriots.
make it. At least they're going to make it.
Can we mute Mike? Can we mute him?
Yes, we can.
Where's Tony Reale?
Done. Brandon, who you taking at 110?
Yeah, 110. I'm going wide receiver. The top 3 quarterbacks have been taken, and the top 2 running backs. So I'm going to wide receiver with Jameson Williams out of Alabama, transferred from Ohio State. I was a little skeptical at first when he transferred there, but he has taken over, you know, at Alabama, the primary target over Mechie and over all those freshman receivers that we thought would get a lot more play this year. I've been impressed that not only is he a deep threat, but he's, you know, catches it kind of, you know, in all 3 areas, you know, intermediate. They throw short passes to him, you know, yards after the catch. And I just think he's going to get that Bama bump that all these wide receivers get. You know, we saw it with Henry Ruggs. And the team that I would like to see him go to is the Chargers, which if they get, you know, if they keep winning, I know they lost this last week, but if they get, you know, back, you know, 10 pick into the first round, I could see him going there. I think, you know, depending on if they lose Mike Williams this offseason, it would give them another deep threat there. And so yeah, I really like him there. I actually like a couple other wide receivers maybe over him, but I just think the speed and, you know, his production at Bama is just going to put him over the top in the NFL draft at least.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that landing spot. They use Mike Williams as their deep threat, and he does not have nearly the speed that Jameson Williams has. I was very surprised that you took him here because I'm with you. There's at least 2 wide receivers that are going to get drafted behind him now that I think I would take over him. But interesting that you've taken him here. All right, so that flips us back around now to the 11 pick, which is you again, Brandon. Who are you taking at 111?
Yeah, actually, both the receivers at 10 and 11 was kind of, you know, a toss-up for me. I just think Jameson Williams might get drafted higher. So I go wide receiver again here. I go with Chris Allave. I think he could go back into the first or the second. That really doesn't matter to me. I just think he's going to be a solid receiver. Probably doesn't have the ceiling that a lot of these other receivers have. But I think once he gets into camp, they're going to really like him, you know, with his route running. And he can, you know, take the top off of the defense. And, you know, he's pretty good on those comeback routes and the outs and everything, and pretty sure hands. Obviously, he's a veteran for, you know, college terms. So I really liked him there. And
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot. And I said New Orleans, since, you know, it looks like Michael Thomas is out the door. They can bring in another Buckeye. And I think that would that'd be a pretty good fit because Sean Payton's really good at, you know, using all of his weapons.
Yeah, he didn't have sure hands when he dropped that end zone pass this week against that team up north, but that's neither here nor there. Austin, since Brandon's mentioned he does not care if Allave goes in the first or second, he still values him. You mentioned earlier about having guys in your top 50. Where do you have Allave, and if he were to go back into the second, would that affect his value for you?
A little bit, but I think he's almost a lock to go top 50. He's going to go to the Senior Bowl. He's going to look good in the drills. He's going to play in the game. He's going to look fine. I think I don't even think it's a hot take. I just think he's virtually guaranteed to go in that range, assuming he doesn't get like cut in half in the Senior Bowl game. I think he's pretty golden there.
All right.
Was that a dream example? I apologize.
No, that's good. Colin, who are you taking here at 112?
So 112 is a guy I'm kind of surprised is still on the board here, given all the hype that he's gotten. But I love this range for him. That's Kenneth Walker III. I mean, he had a Heisman-worthy type year this year. I mean, there were not very many guys this year who having a Heisman worthy year. It's a weaker crew, but Kenneth Walker III having a fantastic year. He really showed out this year for Michigan State. I would like to see more receiving ability out of him, which is kind of something that concerns me a little bit. But in this range, I'll definitely take this swing on that. I mean, he showed just about everything else that you want to see, and I think the lack of receiving is more from the offense. So now it's a question of, can he do it, or we just haven't seen it enough. So I'm not really sure on that. I'll have to dive in a little bit more, but yeah, I like Kenneth Walker here.
So 3 running backs in the first round, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, and Kenneth Walker. Is that how you would rank them, Colin? And do you think all 3 could go in day 2 of the NFL draft this year?
Yeah, that's how I would rank them. Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall at 1-2 and 1-4 here. I mean, that's pretty much how close I have them there. And then Kenneth Walker the third is a bit of a distant third between them. So going 8 picks later feels about right. As far as all of them going, did you say day 2 or round 2?
Round 2. Yeah, I think all 3 will go day 2. Do all 3 go round 2?
Yeah, I think all 3 will go round 2 as well. I don't think any of them will sneak into the first. I don't think that they're good enough this year to get that draft capital, but round 2 feels like a good bet for all of them.
Austin, you're at 201. Or 2-1? Who you taking?
I have to go Johan Dodson here. Because like I just said with Allave, I think he's going to go to the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to look the best in the 1v1 drills out of any wide receiver there. They just kind of favor his skill set. I think he's going to play well in the game, and I think he's going to go top 50. I think he can sneak into the back end of round 1, possibly. He just kind of is what the NFL has been shifting to at the position: smaller, shiftier, can win in multiple ways. And I don't have necessarily a spot for him that I would love. I put Atlanta again because everybody else was. But in reality, I think he kind of fits into an offense. I think he can be the first option, but I think he can also be an amazing complementary option to I don't even know. But I mean, I think he can play like that Deontay Johnson rule that's going on right now in Pittsburgh, or the Tyler Lockett rule in Seattle. I think he can fit that perfectly.
I'm going to go to get a completely unbiased opinion here on Johan Dodson. Colin, do you agree with that, being the fellow Penn State fan here? I mean, Deontay Johnson, I think or Deontay Johnson role, I think that's very interesting, considering Austin seems to hate Deontay Johnson at Pittsburgh, but dude's producing. Where would be a good fit, you think, for Dodson to go if you think he can do that?
So I do like Dodson a lot. I agree with a lot of what Austin said there too, as far as showing out at the Senior Bowl and being a virtual lock for top 50. As far as where he can go, I think Indy would be a good place for him. They don't really have anybody with that skill set there. They have Michael Pittman on the outside. They have Paris Campbell if he can ever stay healthy, but they don't have anybody to run.
We can give up on Paris Campbell. We can give up on Paris Campbell now.
That was a good one, Colin.
Thanks.
That was a good one.
They don't really have anybody to run underneath, run any of the intermediate stuff. They don't have a versatile piece like Dotson that they can move around. So I think that would be a good place for him.
All right, so that puts me up, and I'm taking Kyron Williams here, which is, I think, kind of ironic, considering I feel like I've crapped on him on almost every other Devy Debate episode when we talked about him. But he's really, since the beginning of the season, he's really done a lot better, I think, running the ball. We already know how good of a receiving back he is, and the one thing I've always given him credit for is he is a really good pass blocker for his size. And I stole Austin's landing spot because I agree with him. It just seems like the perfect fit for him to go to Tampa Bay and really kind of become what they hoped Keyshawn Vaughn was going to be. Austin was right earlier. I mean, Leonard Fournette's contract's done this year. So is Giovanni Bernard. I doubt. Although it just seems like they would continue to torture Rojo by picking or finding a way to bring him back, because they just can't seem to let that poor kid go. But I think it really could just be Kyron Williams there for a year, maybe 2 if Brady can stretch it for 2 more years, and be kind of the perfect new James White for that offense. Austin, you have talked a lot about Kyron Williams on Devy Debate, and I know that that's a landing spot you like for Kyron. Do you think he also gets, Colin just mentioned earlier, he thinks Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, and Kenneth Walker can all get drafted in round 2. Can Kyron Williams get drafted in round 2 as well?
Is he a significantly better prospect than Michael Carter was, who went right at the beginning of round 4? Like, I think there's a window there, maybe like 10 to 15 picks on either side of that. But that feels like his range to me. I don't know that I would see him going necessarily earlier than that.
No, I think that's fair. So if he goes round 3, is it a reach taking him this early in the second round? Because I don't remember where Michael Carter went in rookie drafts last year, but I feel like it was in this range. I don't think he ever really fell that far into the second round.
There is only one player that goes after him here. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, that I would definitely take over him. So it doesn't feel outrageous. I don't know, Mike, what do you think about that range for him?
Yeah, I just want to chime in here on Kyron versus Carter. Carter couldn't block, but Kyron can block.
That's true.
That's true. And I think teams are going to fall in love with that skill set. I know you mentioned Tampa Bay. I've tweeted out a few times. I think he's the perfect fit for Bill Belichick to do his shenanigans with a running back committee.
Ramondre.
I would hate that.
Yeah, we're not excited about the fantasy. I value that. But I just think he fits what they do over there. And that's where I think Kyron has an advantage over Carter. And I think he can slip in the back into the third.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And it actually would probably be exactly where he goes in a draft because Bill Belichick just loves to screw us over when it comes to fantasy. Have Ramondre, Damian Harris, James White, Kyron Williams, and Brandon Bolden, and he'll draft some other running back as well in that draft class. All right, Mike, that puts you up at 2-3. Who you taking?
Yeah, at 2-3 here, I took the next quarterback, which is Carson Strong. So I have him here going to Denver. I like Carson Strong's skill set. I was a big fan of Mac Jones coming out last year. I think Carson Strong is kind of a similar skill set plus the arm. So that's why I have him going to Denver because Denver is a complete team. They just need a quarterback. That's really what they need. And that's where I want Carson Strong to go. If he goes to a team with like a weak O-line, like let's say, I don't know, but like if he goes to a team with like the Texans, I'm not excited about Carson Strong whatsoever.
All right. I mean, yeah, Denver I think could be. They have a decent offensive line that I think could be good for him there. Do you think that he ends up being a first round pick or is he a second round pick?
He's a second round pick for me. He'd have to have some sort of late round hype, right? He has to have for the season. I think he's having a early day 2 round pick. But if there's like the off season hype, like the Senior Bowl or the Combine, then yeah, I think he can slide in. But as of right now, no, he's a day 2 for me.
Brandon, would that affect your opinion on Carson Strong at all if he goes in the second round? A lot of people have him as a first-round quarterback.
I think it would depend on where he went. Kind of like Mike was saying with Denver, I think that would be a good spot. I think he's kind of, like he was saying, with Matt Jones. Even though Matt Jones doesn't have great weapons in New England, but he has kind of made them look pretty good this season. You have all those wide receivers, the tight ends. You have Javonte, and if they decide to bring back Melvin Gordon so they can run the ball and, he can, distribute to all those, and they have a pretty good offensive line. But like you said, it all depends on where he goes just because of his lack of mobility and, and all of his injuries with his knee.
All right, Mike, that puts you back up at 2-4.
Yeah, so this is not going to be agreed upon by a lot of people here, but I picked Tyler Allgeier here at 2-4. I just love the skill set. I love the skill set here. And I know you had a question earlier. You talked on the skills on the sheet saying that if I was concerned about his product early season and how I thought about that. They were split in the backfield at BYU with Katoa, if I can say that right. And I didn't understand that, but Katoa had like 9, 8, and 8 carries the first 3 games. He's now at 4, 3, and 2. And Tyler Allgeier is absolutely taken off at the back end of the season here, which is what I like to see now. If, like, let's say we flipped it and he started off hot but ended slow, then yeah, I wouldn't be taking him here. I think he has the skill set. He ran an unofficial 4.39, and like let's just say he gets a 4.4, like in the 4.4s in the combine. I hope that his name gets elevated through the combine because that's what I'm banking on here. I don't think he gets day 2 draft capital right now, but I'm hoping that there's that hype from the combine that I think he's going to absolutely smash.
So if he doesn't get day 2, are you thinking probably round 4?
Yeah, I am. I'm thinking round 4, and I'll probably take him late second, early third. Late second because I'm probably going to be a bias, but probably early third.
Austin, is he reaching on Tyler Allgeier?
Well, he said I was reaching on George Pickens, so yes, just unequivocally, I have to respond that he's reaching. No, I mean, you look like I'm going to say there's still a guy that hasn't gone yet that I get to take in a couple picks that I think should have gone ahead of him. But beyond that, I mean, you look at who is the other running backs that would be left on the board? A Jerome Ford, a Rashad White. I mean, it's just not like a super heavy RB class, really. So,
Right.
And he's got the size.
I also have him going to Miami too, right? Myles Gaskin just obviously isn't it. I think he'd be, if any of these top running backs like Spiller or Hall go to Miami, then I'm very, very interested in that player. So, and there are some nice landing spots for running backs here.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. If Algier goes to Miami, he'll likely be going right around the 2.4 in rookie drafts because everybody will assume he has the backfield to himself. I mean, everybody propped up Jared Dokes last year going there, and he was like a 7th round pick or undrafted last year, and everybody was taking him in rookie drafts. So I think if Algier gets drafted, even if it's the 4th round, people will prop him up. That puts me at 2.5, and I'm just going to be honest with everybody. I messed up here. I completely missed a wide receiver being available on the board. That's why you pay attention in your drafts. So I did take Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think has a lot of upside when it comes to the NFL, but I would have definitely taken the player who's about to go here. But I do like Wan'Dale all around. I think he can be a very intriguing player when he goes into the NFL. I think he's got to go to a offense that's going to use all of his skill sets, but I think he's really increased his draft capital this year. And as crazy as it sounds, going to Kentucky, because a lot of us did not think that was going to be a good move for him, and it ended up, I think, really working out well for him. Mike, you are the resident Kentucky fan, so I'm going to come to you since I came to Colin on Johan Dodson. With what Wan'Dale Robinson has done this year in that offense, where do you think he gets drafted, and what do you think he can be in the NFL?
Yeah, I've seen some day one here, but I'm more into the day two category for him. He hits a lot of the analytical boxes for me. I think he's kind of a discount version of Elijah Moore, just a little Walmart version of Elijah Moore. I don't think he can operate on the outside at all. Now, I talked about earlier about how I want my receivers to operate inside and outside. On my podcast, I highlighted slot receiving targets last year and the relevancy to that. The number 5 slot receiver last year, not this year, was Danny Amendola, and he wasn't fantasy relevant. So I do have a really big concern for receivers that can only operate in the slot.
All right, Austin, that brings us to you at 2.6.
Yeah, here's the one that I've been talking about for like the past 4 picks that people just done messed up on. Drake London was still there. You wide receiver from USC, I guess. People are already forgetting his name because he's out for the rest of the season here with an injury. Possibly back for the combine. Sounds like maybe pro day is more realistic, but should be back for at least one of those. So we'll get some testing numbers. I know that's a concern for some people. Had a great year this year. We all wondered, can he play outside? Can he succeed outside? Because he mostly played big slot the past few years. He played, like 83% of snaps or something on the boundary and certainly produced with them, was a top 3 wide receiver or whatever in college football this year before he went down. I had him going to Green Bay. Is that a good landing spot? If Aaron Rodgers leaves, I don't know. Maybe, but I think that would be a decent spot for him with Devontae Adams gone. I mean, he could show up and be the wide receiver 1 there from day one. I mean, there's a lot of places that could go with Drake London. I do realize that he's not necessarily the archetype of what the NFL has loved lately, but I still think that he's going to get some love with that basketball background and being from a big school.
Yeah, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers stay there and so does Devontae Adams, do you think that jumps him up even more because he goes to a place like Green Bay, where we've been hoping for the past 3 or 4 years they'll draft a wide receiver to put opposite of Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I would be shocked if he goes later than 1.6, 1.7 in drafts. If that scenario would play out. Yeah.
I think it's fair. We can all admit that we kind of messed up that we let him fall that far. I would have taken him over Kyron. Probably would have taken him over Sam Howell. I've been very high on Drake London for a long time. Mike, what are your thoughts on Drake London from kind of like you coming from an analytical background as well?
He hits a lot of the markers there. The early breakout is going to be an early declare. The injury is a little concern, but not too much of a concern here. The problem for me was that he operated like Austin said, 92% of the slot last year. This year, very opposite. So he's showcasing to operate on both sides of the field. I do have a question for Austin here because we talk a lot about Drake London in our chat. I don't really feel like C2C are big fans of Drake London overall. He's a contested catch receiver. Now, like a easy player comp that a lot of people have is Mike Evans. They're both 6'5". The only 6'5" receiver I know in the league is Alan Lazard. And to me, I don't see where he isn't Mike Evans anymore. I think he has showcased the skill set, and I think he's proven everything that any sense of doubt that he's going to be a Mike Evans type player at the next level. And I just want to know what Austin's thoughts were about like those comments in that statement.
It's actually funny because I think that while he's the same size as Mike Evans, I don't think like college Mike Evans played at all as like college Drake London did. So I think for me, the comparison kind of ends beyond just, looking at the two of them standing side by side. I mean, sure, there's definitely a high end of the spectrum. And I don't necessarily agree with because I think people say, like one end of the spectrum is Mike Evans. The other one is JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He's way more athletic than JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So I think that's completely unfair to him, even though I'm not his biggest fan. I think that he's way closer to the Mike Evans side of the spectrum. So I think that I really need to give him a really thorough watch this offseason again and see how I feel. But 206, I mean, holy crap. I probably would have tried to trade up like the last 4 picks if this was a real draft and then been sitting here like, oh my God, he still fell to me.
Yeah, and I'll say, we talked about this on Debbie Debate, Austin, you, me, and Colin. I actually don't even know that his floor is J-Jaw, or a lot of people saying N'Keal Harry as well. I think it could be like a Kenny Golladay type who, he's been a consistent, I think, wide receiver 2 most of his career. At times he's produced at wide receiver 1, and I think London can be that, especially because of what we've seen, as you mentioned earlier, in the slot all of last year. And then this year, he was outside the entire time. And I think, in all honesty, if he doesn't get hurt, he probably wins the Biletnikoff Award and is by far one of the higher rated wide receivers coming out this year. All right, Austin, that puts you. Austin, you just picked Colin. You're up at 2-7.
Yeah, at the 2-7 here, I'm getting a guy that I like a lot. I had some back and forth with Felix on Twitter about him, but that's Rachaad White. Overall, as a prospect, I like Rachaad White a lot. I mean, he's 6'2", 210. He's got the size you're looking for. He's a very good pass catcher. I mean, he has 43 catches on the year this year. It was a short year last year, but he had a nice number of catches as well. So I think absolute worst case scenario, his pass catching ability is going to give him a role at the next level. Now, I do question a little bit here whether he can carry a full load at the NFL level. He hasn't really done it too much so far through college. He did it for a nice little 2-game stretch against USC and Washington, 28 carries, 32 carries. He had almost 200 yards in both games, but then he kind of fell back down to earth the last 2 games and wasn't nearly as efficient as he had been before that. So those question marks still linger there for me a little bit, but at the 2-7, even if I'm getting a third down back who catches a lot of passes, that's still solid value, especially at 6'2", 210.
Yeah, I mean, Felix has been all over Rachaad White for a while now. Do you believe that with what we've seen out of him this season, he has a true 3-down skill back set? And again, same question. So I've been asking this about all the running backs. Where is it you think what kind of draft capital do you think he gets?
Yeah, I do think he can do it. I still have some question marks about it. I'm going to have to dive in a little bit more this year, but I think he can do it. I don't feel great about it though, so that's why I think 2-7 is a solid range. As far as draft capital goes, I think again we're kind of looking at day 2. Round 2 I think would be his ceiling. Probably back half of round 2. I think most likely is like mid 3rd, because I do think he's going to test pretty well. He's not going to blow the doors off the combine, but for 6'2", 210, I think he'll test pretty well. So I think that'll help his draft stock.
All right, Brandon, you're up at 2-8.
Yeah, at 2-8, I go quarterback, since it's SuperFlex. I go with Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. I still don't believe he's a first-round pick just because it'll be interesting how the NFL looks at him because you don't really see this that often with where, he's been a starter all these years and has played, average at best. And then this year he has a great year. I keep on waiting for him to kind of, have that really bad game, but he keeps on, moving Pitt, through. into the ACC championship, and I actually put him at the for the Washington football team. If they can get him in the second round, I think if a team in the early second, mid to second could get him, and maybe not start right away, maybe midway through the year or something, I think he could be very good in certain situations where they have some good playmakers there, and they have Terry McLaurin there, Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel if he can ever get healthy again. So that's why I have Kenny picked there. But yeah, I just have concerns about him going in the first round, because I just really have no idea how the NFL is going to kind of look at him. I know some people, I think Kuiper had him as the first quarterback. I don't really know if that would be true, this early in the process. But that's the only reason he would drop that far for me, because I don't think he's going in the first round.
If he goes in the first round, there's no way he falls into the second round of a rookie draft, right?
No way. No way.
Does everybody agree with that?
I think that's league dependent.
Okay.
I have some leagues where all the if there's 5 quarterbacks to go in the first and second round, they're all gone by pick 9. I have some leagues where guys will trickle to the 2, 4, 5, 6 spots. So I don't think it's unrealistic necessarily. I think it depends on your league.
So with both of you saying that though, again, so say he goes in the first round, even if he is, I think Kuiper had him as his number 1 quarterback off the board. If he goes ahead of Corral or Howell, even if you don't believe in him as much as a Corral, Willis, and Howell, there's no way he falls till 2-8 though, right? I mean, he's gonna go before then.
Yeah, that I would agree with. If he goes in the first round, I don't see him falling to 2-8. That's pretty low. But I agree, and maybe it's because Austin and I are in a lot of the same leagues. But there were definitely leagues out there where I think Mac Jones was going, in the early second, and he was a top 15. He was picked 15. So you saw some places where he was going, 2-1, 2-2. I think that's kind of more the range where Kenny Pickett could go, even if he does go in the first. Now, like Austin said, definitely some leagues he'll go in the top, in the first, but I could see him slipping into the second, even if he goes in the first round.
Hey, I actually wanted to comment about that. I think people are going to draft him early. I really do, because people made a mistake on waiting on Mac Jones, and now everyone's saying Mac Jones is a solid QB2 for the rest of his career. And like you just said, people waited till the second. I got him at 203, I think, in a 12-man league. So very excited about. And so I think people are going to remember that last year going into next year. They're going to be I can't wait on Kenny Pickett. I just need to scoop him up now if he's a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. Recency bias.
Brandon, you're up at 2-9.
Yeah, at 2-9, I'm going with Zay Flowers from Boston College. He really disappointed and hurt me this past week. The whole Boston College offense, it did nothing against that horrible Wake Forest defense. But, even in some games where Jerkovic missed, he had some good games. And I think he could be a solid, wide receiver 2, or high-end wide receiver 3, depending on where he goes. And the place I said was Indianapolis, because I think they need another wide receiver. He could be more the, speedy type guy, since Paris Campbell can't stay healthy. T.Y., you've got to assume he's done pretty soon, and he keeps on getting injured. So I think that would be a good spot for him to be opposite Michael Pittman.
What is his fantasy ceiling in the NFL? Do you think he can consistently be a wide receiver 2, or you're probably looking at a wide receiver 3 or lower?
I would say he could be a wide receiver 2, not necessarily a high-end one, probably mid to, top wide receiver 3, kind of that, I guess 15 to 25 range.
All right, Colin, you're up at 210.
210. I take my next running back off the board here. I mean, I've been going running back heavy here this class, this draft. But I'm taking Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincy. He's got the size that you're looking for: 5'11", 220. People forget that he was originally at Alabama before transferring to Cincy, so he had a little bit of hype there originally, and then he's having a great year this year too. He has over 1,000 yards rushing, 17 catches this year too. So you get a little bit of the catch, a little bit of the receiving ability there too. He's a solid athlete as well. So at the 210, I'm ecstatic to get him here. for draft spots, for places to put landing spots, I had him going to Seattle, which I think would be fantastic because Chris Carson can't stay healthy. Alex Collins is, nothing when he's not in Seattle. Homer and DJ Dallas aren't really anything. So they need a running back. And I think Jerome Ford would be great there.
What do you see as his draft capital? And if he does go to Seattle, do you see him being able to produce the way we've seen Chris Carson produce in that offense?
Yeah, I don't really think there's any reason why he couldn't produce the way Chris Carson does if he gets in that offense. As far as where draft capital, I think it's kind of similar to Rachaad White, where second round is his ceiling. Most likely area is going to be very end of the second or early to mid third. I think it's the most likely place that he goes. But I do think he is going to be a day two guy. He's got the size, he's got some speed, and since he's going to be, fingers crossed, knock on wood, since he's going to be on a big stage here if they get in the playoffs.
Oh, they'll be in a big stage. Austin, you are the biggest Jerome Ford stan that I know. So before you give your pick, do you agree with Colin on his draft capital? Late round 2, possibly into mid round 3?
No, I think that's too early, to be honest. I don't think he'll quite go that high. I think there'll only be 3, maybe 4 RBs that go day 2. And I don't know that he's going to be one of those. So no, I don't think that draft capital happens.
All right, who are you taking at 211?
I'm taking Khalil Shakir here. If you're going to be a G5 guy, you're going to have to kind of just crush it in college basically every year you're there. He did that. He's versatile. He can contribute in the run game. Explosive. I'm interested to see how he tests. I don't think he's going to do bad. I'm interested to see exactly how he does there. And again, another Senior Bowl guy. So as long as he doesn't get hurt at Senior Bowl, I think he's going to do well there. I think he'll be the second best player in 1v1s. So,
all right. So I don't know the exact track record for G5 guys, but do you think that he can, produce when he gets to the NFL? What is his realistic draft capital?
He has to go day 2. If he doesn't, he's dead to me. But I think that's very possible. And I think the Senior Bowl invite is a nice indicator that is possible for him. I think it's certainly in the range of outcomes.
All right, so that puts me up at 212, and I'm taking my guy Desmond Ritter. Can't go through a mock draft without at least taking him. And this is the guy that I talked about earlier. I think, don't you shake your head at me, Austin. I think a great landing spot for him could be a Washington football team. Again, I think he definitely struggles with accuracy at times, but I do think he's a little bit more athletic than he gets credit for. I know me and Felix have gotten into some arguments because he says he's not fast, and while I don't necessarily disagree with that, the dude has the legs of a giraffe. 2 steps and he's already eaten up 12 to 15 yards. He moves he doesn't run like a wounded deer. There's a big quarterback who ran. I can't remember who it is now off the top of my head, but I think he's more athletic than he gets credit for. And I think if he can sit a year behind Heineke with the weapons that Washington has and the way that Turner runs that offense, I do think that he could be an effective quarterback. I don't know that I should say I don't know. He's never going to be a QB1, and he's probably never going to be a high-end QB2, but my argument with him has always been if he gets drafted high and has a chance to be a starter in the NFL, that has value. And for a guy that you got likely before this past year, late in your college drafts, I do think is end up going to bring back a lot of value for your NFL teams because starting quarterbacks matter in these formats. And that's been my biggest argument with him. I'm going to come to you again, Austin, because I know you hate him. If he gets drafted in the second round, there's probably little chance that Washington would do this and come out and say, hey, he's our future. He's sitting for a year, a la like a Jacksonville's done with Blake Bortles and other teams have done. Hey, we're going to let him sit for a year. He's our guy moving forward. Would that change anything for you when you look at his value?
His ball placement is consistently atrocious. Especially in the 25-yard plus range. I don't know, just kind of drawing that number, but anything that's a little longer than what I would call intermediate, I just think he struggles. He consistently underthrows guys. He consistently throws the incorrect shoulder. That's a tough thing to ask somebody to fix in the NFL. And I don't think, I'm going to want to watch him again this year, but mechanically, I don't think he's awful mechanically. So it's not if he can clean up his footwork, make sure he's pointing his hips correctly, he can clean that up. It looks like he does all that. He just doesn't have a great feel for throwing the football. and he floats the ball sometimes too weirdly.
Yeah,
like I don't.
he does.
It's odd because I don't think like he doesn't have a poor arm, but it's not great either. But like he floats the ball way too often, so he has like a lot. Like he is a weird quarterback prospect, a very unorthodox and like not necessarily in the best way either.
Like I do think he's much better in the short area, but I do agree with you in the deep passing. And I think the reason he flutters is I think he's trying to be too fine with it, if that makes sense. Because I do agree with you. Like he is so inconsistent placing the ball deep. I think he flutters it as in like a hope that his wide receiver is able to kind of go get it, but then it also tends to fall short when he does that. So he's going to be very interesting. I still think he, again, value-wise, has a chance to gain a lot of value. And obviously, most rounds end here at 2, but we didn't want Mike to just have to sit here and not get a pick. So Mike gets one more pick here at 213. Mike, who you taking?
Yeah, my last pick here is going to be Jalen Tolbert. I have him going to Las Vegas. I just thought he could do what they wanted Brian Edwards to do and actually be successful there. He's just a big man. I think he's one of the only guys that can be here the only guy left that can do alpha ability type stuff. I mean, you got Treylon Burks, sure, George Pickens, absolutely. And I think it's Jalen Tolbert there's number 3 in that category that he can be a potential alpha. I like what he's done. Again, he's only played in G5, and I'm looking very forward to seeing him in the Senior Bowl because he's going to see actual top cornerback competition, and we're going to actually be able to know if he's the real deal or not, or he's just the dominating weak competition.
Do you think if he goes to the Senior Bowl and is able to dominate, a lot of people say, oh, well, those one-on-one routes don't matter. And then we saw Stephon Diggs have his little one-on-one route with Marshawn Lattimore, who's still considered one of the best cornerbacks, and it mattered when he got that touchdown pass. If he goes out there and dominates in the Senior Bowl, could he be that guy this year, a la like a Terry McLaurin, that sees that massive rise in value? I mean, I know a lot of C2C people like him, but maybe those dynasty guys who may be watching this and have no idea who Jalen Tolbert is, could we see that Terry McLaurin rise for him?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually more thinking about Chase Claypool here as his ability for his rookie year. I did a podcast earlier today talking just about the Senior Bowl here, and you talked about G5 like numbers for the draft. You see an average of 1 to 2 G5 guys per round the last 3 years going to day 2 draft capital. Except for the 1 year with J-Jaw, there was like 6 or 7 guys that went in that draft class. And about an average of like half of the G5 guys come out to be actual studs. Like Deontay Johnson's a big one. Devontae Adams is a big one. Anyway, I think this is going to be the year of G5 guys. I'm looking for 4 or 5 of them to get into that day 2 capital range. All the guys we've talked about here today. And I'm looking for Jalen Tolbert to rise up there.
All right. So, I mean, right there, we just did 2 rounds, and I feel like maybe 2-7-ish, which if we go back and look at that, Rachaad White, maybe that's kind of where you draw the line of like guys you feel really comfortable with. But again, I think this is a lot deeper class than we've given it credit for. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for jumping on with me tonight, and we will do this again soon.
Thanks for hosting, Matt. Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.